Twin Peaks, the infamous series, the soul-crushing aesthetics of brutalist architecture, and a random chick claims her red hair is natural, but everyone knows that's not natural, sweetie. What if you put them all in a blender and mix them all up? Well, you'd probably get some weird chunky goo colored red from all that dye. What? Did you think I was gonna say you get Control, the 2019 paranormal shooter where you play as that random red-haired chick and fight through waves of interdimensional zombies in a world that's more mysterious than Todd Howard's hair? How the hell has it not changed? It looks the same in all these photos. They're years apart. His hairstyle is as old as the engine he builds his games on.
Bang. Bang. Nice. Got a twofer there.
But back to what I was saying. Why would mixing all that stuff in a blender give you a AAA game, you complete moron? Yeah, I'm talking to you. God, you're stupid. I'm surprised you were able to open up YouTube and start this video. How dumb can you— Wait, okay, I'm sorry, please don't go. You're not stupid. You're totally right. That's how they make games. Not by underpaying and overworking coders for 70-hour work weeks, but by mixing together vague concepts in a metaphorical blender. Control is a real game though, and you might not know that because it suffered the same fate as other great games like Titanfall 2, A Quiet Death. For whatever reason, some games just don't get any love. Sometimes they're overshadowed by other releases like Titanfall 2, and sometimes they just don't do enough marketing, which is what I think happened here. Listen, I'm a level 10 neckbeard, which means I keep up to date with gaming news like any good basement dweller would. I was following and watching content and gaming releases constantly, and I still didn't find out this game existed until I watched someone's top 10 list for their favorite games that year, and they had Control on it. And just like Days Gone, I only ended up playing this because my broke ass got it for free through the PlayStation Plus. It was lots of fun the first time I played it. I remember falling in love with this game. Well, for like a month, and then the next free game got my attention. But still, I really want to play it again, so why not make a dumb challenge so I can post it on my dumb YouTube channel? And after a lot of thought, I landed on a challenge I think is my most disruptive challenge to date. I don't think I've had a video that removes this much of the gameplay loop from the actual game. Well, with the exception of my Cold War video where I wasn't allowed to move the camera, that was pretty crazy. But still, this challenge is going to be very hard. Can I take out all the para in this paranormal shooter just to make it a normal shooter, I guess? Can you beat Control with no powers? Control's gameplay is built around the fusion of using Jessie's abilities and her unique gun. The player is supposed to switch from using their pistol to throwing office supplies with lethal force at enemies. You can tell it's intended to be fluid, non-stop action gameplay because of the way they designed it. Her gun has a limited ammo, but it will overheat, and when it does, the player can start using her abilities to kill whatever is around them instead of just hiding in cover as their gun reloads. And when she runs out of energy for using her abilities, she can switch back to using her gun. This way, it's constant, high-octane action, and it's lots of fun. Certain enemies are weak to damage against the gun, but strong against abilities and vice versa, so you even have to strategize about how you approach each fight. It's why the challenge is going to be hard. I'm taking out a huge part of the gameplay, and I gotta figure out how the hell I'm gonna get through tough fights and puzzle sections without being able to do what's intended. Now for the challenge, I'm still gonna be able to use some abilities. This includes cleansing control points, objects, or people, and opening loot crates. These uses of her ability aren't actually part of the gameplay loop, but within the canon of the game, these actions are using her abilities. Like when she opens a loot crate, she is using telekinesis, but it's just because that's the animation they use in game. And if I counted each time I cleansed something as a fail, then I would fail the challenge every time I did something integral within the story. The abilities I can't use are all the abilities the player can actively choose to use that actually affect gameplay, both in fighting and in traversal. So just to be clear, I'll list everything I can't use for the challenge. Telekinesis. Whether it's to fight or to move objects, each use of this will count as a fail. Meleeing, you'd think I'd be able to, but Jessie's meleeing is actually short-range force blast, so I can't do that. Levitating, most people without powers can't levitate, with the exception of Chris Angel, I guess, but I'm not the emo sex magic icon Chris Angel. I'm Crispy645, Guinness World Record for largest micropenis, so no levitating for me. Dodging in this game is on a roll, but a short burst phase, which means it's another thing I can't do. Creating a shield and seizing enemies will also count as fails. Out of all of these, the worst parameter is definitely not being able to dodge. Without it, I'm going to be taking a lot of damage. Now, if you watch some of my other videos, you probably notice that this challenge isn't set to the hardest difficulty like my others are. That's because Control has no difficulty setting. There's only one way to play the game. Honestly, it works great though. The game isn't too hard, so successful, and still has some very hard optional bosses that even a seasoned neckbeard like me struggled at. To make it a little like I was playing on the hardest difficulty though, I turned off all my HUD. I won't see my health, or enemy level, and I won't be able to see my gun's overheating meter. And yes, even though I'm technically a power, I'm not gonna ban myself from this challenge. If I did, it'd be very hard to beat it. Nothing else to explain now, so let's just get started with the run.
Welcome back, and in today's video, we're going to become a CEO.
The game starts with Jessie explaining how she's been trying to find someone for a long time, and then footage of one of the guys from Mad Men performing his self-lobotomy. I walk to the FBC. No, not fat beefy cock. It's the Federal Bureau of Patrol. Read a file that says prohibited materials include anything smart, which means I have the go-ahead to enter. Explored the empty first floor of the building for a bit and met Ati, the most sane character in the game.
There be work for the axe. Take them behind the sauna, jumalauta.
Okay. I've done enough.
He's the janitor and thinks I'm the new assistant janitor for some reason and points me to the elevator. Turn the corner and I'm back to where I was when I came in, but instead of 3 paintings, there's 2. The middle one, Ati, has been switched out for an elevator, and if I try to run back down the hallway I just walked down, the end of it is sealed off. See, this game is weird. It's trippy, it breaks the bounds of reality, and with purpose. Control is a very interesting concept for a game, and the story is awesome, but it's also very weird. I mean, they even tell you in the game's launch trailer that it's gonna be a weird game.
Fair warning. This is gonna be weirder than usual.
That's about as close to breaking the fourth wall the developers can get without just straight having text on the screen warning the player of the game's obscurity. Control is super weird, and it's not a bad thing. Lots of games are like that, but for this video, it kinda is bad. It's hard for me to sum up these complex concepts without spewing a bunch of word vomit. So unlike my other videos where I'll talk about the plot a lot, I'm not really gonna go in depth here. Or at least too in depth. It would take way too long, and I'm way too lazy to do that. Like, look at the in-game files. Almost everything that has important information is blacked out. It's supposed to be like that because everything is confidential, and as the game goes on, you can start to figure out more of the censored information through context clues. I love this. It's unique, it's immersive, and it keeps you in the dark, but like in a good way. But I'm not gonna sit here and try to explain all this stuff to you guys. You clicked on this video to see me torture myself through another stupid challenge, not listen to a 3-hour lecture about the plot of the game. Also, I figured this is a game a lot of people slept on, so if you're one of these people and you want to try playing it at some point, this video won't ruin the experience for you. And I highly recommend that you play this game if you have. It can be a little slow at times in the gameplay. I would say think of it as a story game first and a shooter second, but the atmosphere and world it builds is definitely worth the time. This is a game that deserves your undivided attention. So yeah, don't play this while watching Family Guy clips on TikTok. For the sake of the video, a lot of weird shit's gonna happen that doesn't make sense. Just go with it. Jessie came to the FBC to find her brother. 17 years ago, he was taken by the Bureau. So I head to the director's office to question him when I found out the director's last meeting didn't end so well. I pick up his gun and get introduced to the board, the dead guy's boss. It's a talking upside down triangle. Well, if you can call this talking. The gun is an object of power, or an oop. An object of power is basically an object infused with paranatural abilities that can be bound to people with the ability to wield these objects. Those people are called parautillians. The board tells me that only the director can wield the gun, sword / intentionally left blank, so my application will be processed. In normal words, by picking up this gun, I just applied to be the director of the FBC, and if I don't pass this test, I'll die. So it's a pretty tough exam. I still rather do this than redo my first year calculus exam. That thing sucked. I'm sent to the astral plane. It's a different dimension. It's where we store all our empty white space, apparently. Bonus joke, empty white space is what I call my forehead. I'll be here a few times in the game, mainly getting new powers, as this is usually used as a tutorial section. Right away, I'm asked to melee someone. I don't have any powers or my gun yet, and nothing happens unless I do it, so I melee the dummy and get my first fail of the run. I grabbed the weapon and used it on the other dummies. It's pretty strong and got a sizable clip. I just gotta wait it out when it overheats. Finished the tutorial, so now some random ass girl that just walked into this building 10 minutes ago is the new director of the FBC. I went from janitor's assistant to CEO in 5 minutes. Go to the director's office where I'm attacked by Jessie's leftover red hair dye. This is what she gets for having a carpet that only matches her drapes once a week every month. Fought my first few real enemies here, nothing challenging at all. Walked down the hallway to see all the paintings of the director now feature me, which is totally normal. Didn't have any rent money, so he sold my cat to my landlord instead. Fought some more enemies and almost died for the first time. Without the ability to melee, if I'm out of ammo and an enemy is advancing, I can't do anything. I was able to heal quickly though before I got murked. The healing system in this game is interesting. It's not like other games where you generate full health over time or use potions to heal. You heal by picking up swords. They're these little blue squares and they only drop when you damage or kill enemies. So if you're about to die, the only way you can fully heal up is to keep fighting. I like this, and I think it fits in the design of the game's combat very well. Instead of hiding and taking a break from combat to heal, you're forced to keep going, making sure the fights stay fast paced. Went to the center of the room and cleansed my first control point. As I said before, although this does use her abilities, I'm not going to count this as a fail. You do this a lot. Control points need to be cleansed so they reset rooms, allowing you to progress in the game. They also act as a hub where you can upgrade Jessie's skills, fast travel, accept bounties, and respawn. After cleansing the control point, I meet survivors in a shelter, including Pope. No, not the Pope, just Pope. You can tell this isn't the Pope because it's not a 100-year-old man in a silly hat in charge of an army of child molesters. Pope fills me in on everything. Again, not the Pope because I'm not a little boy. If I was, then yeah, the Pope would probably be filling me in. The FBC is currently under attack by an unknown entity called the Hiss. It's some sort of living frequency hive mind that is taking control of anybody not wearing an HRA, the weird speaker thingy Pope is wearing on her chest. Now that sounds confusing, and it is. So to make it easier for your tiny little brain, just think of it as an airborne zombie virus, and anybody not wearing an HRA is infected with the exception of Jessie, because she is special. The building's on lockdown until the Hiss are defeated, so no one's getting in or out. Jessie wants to find her brother, but if she wants to help Pope and the others, she's gonna have to play her role as the new director of the Bureau and help him get rid of the Hiss. Pope asks asks me to try cleansing an infected person of the hiss like I did with the control point, but I just end up Thanos snapping them out of existence. So anyone infected is already dead. Talk to Pope a bit more and she tells me I can talk to the dead and the board if I use the hotline, another object of power only available to Director. Once I get there, I'll be able to hear messages from the dead, like the Director before me. Yeah, that's him. And he can help me fix this whole mess. On the way to the hotline, I opened up my first item box and grabbed a mod. One of the ways to upgrade guns and yourself in this game is to use mods. They have ranged abilities and some can only be used for specific weapons. You get mods from killing enemies and opening loot box, and the mods you get stronger as the game progresses. As it is right now, I don't really have enough to start customizing my guns to perform a certain way, so I'm just gonna be equipping whatever's the strongest. Fought some enemies, but still early in the game, so nothing too hard. The next room had my first enemy with a shield. Shields in this game can regenerate after being damaged or destroyed if the enemy doesn't take damage for a brief period of time, which means if I focus on an enemy that has a shield, I gotta full kill them ASAP or else their shield will repair itself or respawn. It's not too bad on a normal hiss enemy, but on special enemies or bosses, the shields can be very annoying. Watch this really weird episode of The Muppets.
My mom's dead.
Loser. Kermit has let himself go. Saw someone get bonked by a giant Nerf pellet. The way I have to go is block, so now I have to go into the room and find out whatever just killed that guy. Turns out it's a flying floppy disk. I told you this game is weird. The floppy disk is another object of power. Some objects of power and some altered items, which are basically the same thing as object powers, are getting corrupted by the hiss and acting weird, or I guess weirder than normal. So I'll occasionally have to cleanse them of the hiss. The main difference between objects of power and altered items is that when cleansing an object of power, I'll usually get a new ability, like right now. Cleansing this disk gives me telekinesis and sends me back to the astral plane. When I spawn, there's a wall in front of me. I can't get through and I can't destroy it with my gun. I have to use launch, the game's telekinesis power. It's another tutorial, so of course the devs make it so the only way out of here is after demonstrating that I can use the power properly. So another fail here, that's 2 now. Had to use launch again to open a bridge here, 3 fails. But the rest of the tutorial can be done without using it. I have to fight some more dummies, but I could just use my gun. Back in the FPC, a few more enemies spawn, and a lot of them got shields. Shields are actually weak against launch. You're supposed to whip some stuff at the enemies, breaking the shields instantly before shooting them with your gun, but I can't do that. So I gotta slowly chip away the enemy's shields and then the health, probably waiting for my gun to cool down from overheating a few times during the process, which is very annoying. I ended up spending a lot of time in this run in cover, just waiting for my gun to cool down. Fights can get very hard if I don't have a lot of cover, or if the enemies can flank me. I'm just a sitting duck waiting for my gun to cool down. So as it is right now, the difficulty of the fight kind of just depends on the layout of the map and enemy spawns. If there's lots of cover in the area, I'm good. And if the enemies spawn in front of me, I'm good. But if there's no cover, and if the enemies spawn around me, I'm fucked. Respawned at the nearest control point and got back to the area and only had to kill 1 guy, so I kind of just skipped that whole fight by dying, which is great. You know, that's just like real life. Did you get caught cheating on your wife and don't have the balls to have the confrontational fight with her? Just kill yourself. Guaranteed you won't have to talk to her again. Guaranteed. Met the guy they based the Poggy mode off. Nah, that's a joke. The person it was really based off of is now an alt-right crypto extremist. I fought my first boss. Just like Jesse, some humans have abilities, and if they got infected, they now become hiss with superpowers. Not all hiss with abilities are bosses, but this one is, and he kicked my ass. On my second try, I learned that he will dodge most of my shots if I shoot him while he's idle. So after being murdered again, I found out the best plan on attack is to wait until he starts his attack, unload a clip into him as he aims, and get back in cover before he hurls rocks at me. He can't dodge while he's aiming, so it works out great. I did have to worry about all the other enemies that would spawn, but because they all spawned in front of me, I was able to kill them before they can get close to flanking me. I did almost get killed at the very end. Something set off an explosion next to me, but because I had been killing all the other goons, there was an abundance of health on the ground waiting to be picked up. Another great plus of this healing system is I can save health until I need it. You don't pick up health elements if you're full health, and they won't go away until you use them or the fight ends, while they'll despawn later. This means if you can remember where you killed a bunch of enemies during that fight, you're guaranteed to have a bunch of health on the floor there. After defeating the boss, I was almost at the hotline, but first I gotta traverse the Ocean View Motel. It's an alternate dimension, kind of. I don't know how to explain it, but this shady motel isn't only used for incestuous affairs between cousins, it's also a little puzzle area. After finding the key, I'll either get transported to a different location, or like in this case, it will unlock a path for me. When I get back to the real world, there's now a bridge I can cross, letting me get to the hotline. Got sent back to the astral plane after cleansing it. Didn't fail here, but I did meet a new enemy type, the astral spike. They can't be killed, only stunned if I shoot them a bit. If I go in their space, they will follow me, and I'll take damage or die if they get too close, so I just gotta avoid them. After talking to Trent to the hotline, he tells me to assemble my management team before listing a bunch of names. These are all people who are higher ups within the bureau, all heads of different fields. I need to find them so I can figure out what to do about the hiss. Pope tells me they're all located in different sectors of the building, but because the building is on lockdown, no one can travel between sectors. So first, I need to find a way to get into maintenance and lift the lockdown. Before heading down, I want to go upgrade myself a bit. For my skill tree, the only branch that is useful to me is the health tree. Everything else is related to Jessie using her powers, so they're all useless to me. I unlocked board countermeasures as well, which are basically side bounties I can choose to do for rewards assets, typically mods for my weapons. They're pretty useful, and I tried to do them as much as possible throughout the run. The elevator isn't supposed to work right now because of the sector lockdown, but Ati the janitor tells me it's time to come do some work for him and magically opens the maintenance sector's corridor elevator for me. So yeah, he's definitely different than the other people who work here and has some sort of supernatural control over the building.
I'd like to find whoever invented the stairs and push him down these stairs, just to show him how stupid stairs are.
Spent way too long trying to break this glass window for loot that was not worth it. Fought some dudes and got bodied by one when he got too close, respawned, cleared that area properly, cleansed the control point, and got enough cash to buy my first weapon form, the Shatter. No, not the weed extract stoner, it's the shotgun. The cool thing about the service weapon, the gun you use in the game, is it has multiple forms, 2 of which you can switch between on the fly, turning into a different type of gun that shares the same ammo pool. The shotgun is perfect for this challenge because of how effective it is in close range. I'm mainly dying at this point when I get flanked and someone gets up close to me, but with the shotgun I can easily shred anybody that attempts to do that into pieces. After clearing that area, I went down to the hall and followed this blinking red light before being jump scared.
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
That's when I realized this is actually a side mission to get the dodge ability. Realizing I'd probably fail again if I continued with the side mission, I reloaded my last checkpoint and chose not to go down the hallway this time. Gaining certain abilities, like dodge, are completed through optional side missions. So if I don't do the side mission, I won't have to risk getting another fail during the tutorial section for that power. I got excited when I found another Muppets episode. Got to Atti's office, he gave me very clear instructions.
Jaha, you think there's a dog buried in this? I can tell you are not yesterday.
He can help me with lifting the lockdown, but I gotta fix the power plant before it blows up. In the power plant, I meet more survivors, including Arish, the guy in charge of security. He tells me to hold off the hiss as I go around fixing the plant. With my new shotgun, I was turning groups of the hiss into Kurt Cobain impersonators. Standard fights aren't really gonna be an issue for me at this point on. In my next room, I get my first environmental puzzle. I need to put this giant square power cube in the square-shaped socket in the wall. Literally a puzzle for babies. Matching shapes isn't hard. The problem is getting the square in the socket. You're supposed to use your telekinesis to pick it up and throw it into the socket, but I can't do that. So I spent a good 5 minutes running to walls and trying to find it out of bounds to get past the gate, but I had no luck. I had to give in and use my telekinesis to pick up the cube and power open the door. I thought maybe if I had an explosive weapon, I could try blasting it into the socket, but without one yet, the only thing I could think to do here is get another fail. 4 fails now. In the next room, I got screwed. No, not because of me dying. That was fine. I just respawned and cleared the area on my next life. I was screwed because my current objective needed me to plug 3 different cubes on the giant blue thermos looking thingy. I was able to clear 3 waves of enemies and get my way to the top of the room, but the exit door won't open until the energy converters are restored. I spent some time trying to glitch my way out of bounds again, but nothing worked. Out of ideas, I tried one last thing, thinking there was no way this is going to work. I shot the cube. And it moved. It didn't matter there was a normal pistol bullet, the in-game physics must allow collision between these objects, meaning I can push these squares by shooting them. And once the cube was close enough to the socket, the game automatically connected the 2. Here, I'll play in slow motion so you can see it better. So I don't even have to shoot the cubes into the sockets, I just need to shoot them close enough to the socket so the automatic connection takes over. Now I'm going to take a guess as why the devs added this little automatic connection thingy. I think it's a built-in mechanic so the player doesn't have to have perfect aim when throwing the cubes into place. They just gotta get it close enough to the target, which makes sense because later in game you have to make these shots from further away, where getting a perfect shot would be hard. This is great though because I can just exploit the automatic connection thing for this challenge, making it way easier to plug in the sockets. One thing you might notice about these sockets compared to the ones I got my fail on is their locations relative to the ground. These are low to the ground so it's easy to shoot the cubes in, but the first one I did where I got the fail was high up on a wall. So I don't even know if it's possible for me to shoot the cube up into it, which is why even though I considered removing the fail because I did find a way to move the cubes, without being able to recreate that exact setting, I feel like it's unfair to do so. So I'm keeping myself with 4 fails. Finished plugging the cubes, got out of that room, and then I watched my PlayStation struggle to render in text. I'm gonna be completely honest, I'm surprised my PlayStation could even run this game. Now before doing this next objective, I thought I would backtrack to the room with the first cube and try to plug it into powers this time. The game here glitched out and automatically removed it when I entered. This is only supposed to happen the first time you enter the room, but it did it again for some reason. I started positioning the cubes close to the socket with my pistol, but I need to use something else to shoot them up in the air. The pistol just can't create enough force to get any airtime, but my shotgun can. And with a few good shots, I was able to get the cube close enough that the automatic connection took over and plugged it in itself. Now that actually proved it's possible plugging that first cube without any powers, I feel like it's more than fair to remove my previous fail, so I'm back down to just 3. Overall, I'm really glad I found a way to move objects without telekinesis because there are a lot of sections in game where you have to use these cubes. Head to the next objective where I meet some hiss doing the Kid Lori emote from Fortnite. And just like Kid Lori's career, these hiss blow up and then disappear. So I gotta make sure I keep moving and I shoot these guys down before they get close enough to do any damage. They're called hiss charged and they're basically just suicide bomber ending types. Very low health, so not a big deal. Now before continuing with the main quest, I did something very stupid and decided to do what is supposed to be a quick side mission. There's a room off to the side with a very strange furnace, and I've been asked by Ati to burn the trash. Now at first, my small little brain thought that meant just throw anything into the furnace. But after a few minutes pretending to be a lobotomy survivor, I realized I'm actually supposed to burn the glowing green barrels, the very obviously colored and outlined items to show the player that these are important somehow. Obviously, that's what I have to burn, and not some random fucking cardboard box. Normally, I just grab those with telekinesis and throw in the fire, but I can't, so I have to shoot them into the fire. But this takes forever. Just to do the first barrel, which is definitely the easiest out of them, took me almost 2 minutes, and now I have to repeat this 6 times and from starting positions that are further away. This was not worth it, and a smart man would have realized it at this point and stopped at the side mission, but I am not a smart man. I spent a long time doing this. For comparison, I looked on YouTube at walkthroughs for this mission, and it's normally supposed to take you like 2 to 5 minutes, but not for me. You know what? Why don't you take a guess at how long it took? Was it A, 10 minutes, B, 15, or C, a full 20? Well, if you guessed A or B, you're wrong. And if you guessed C, you're a dumbass and wrong. It took me 30 goddamn minutes to do this. Well, 29 and 43 seconds to be exact. But still, why did I do this? You don't get a good reward at all for doing this mission, and I knew that going into it. I'm just ranting right now about how dumb I am for doing this. But if you ever wonder why it takes me so long to make videos, it's because I spend a bunch of time doing dumb shit like this in my gameplay, and then I have to watch myself do it again when I'm writing the script. At the cool pumps, I had to do the same thing I did with the energy converters and plugging the cubes, but it was pretty easy with the pile cubes being next to the sockets I need to plug in. I did have to fight the clog though. Because this game is about interdimensional breaches and beings, occasionally I have to fight things that aren't the hiss, like the clog. I don't even know what you classify this thing as. It looks like the final stage in the life cycle of a Taco Bell meal. It's weird, but fighting this thing is easy. It doesn't really attack me, and I just gotta shoot its like, glowing clits to defeat it. Oh, does that make you slightly uncomfortable that I called them glowing clits? Well, don't blame me. That's what the developers made them look like. What else am I supposed to call them? After flushing the clog, I headed out of the room, but now I have to fight my first hiss trooper. These guys are just juggernauts, so slow moving, but they have an insane amount of health. They come in 2 forms, one with a grenade launcher and one with a minigun like this one. The grenade launcher troopers are way easier to kill because they have a slow rate of fire. They only shoot a few grenades and then they just wait around for like 5 to 10 seconds before shooting more. But the minigun troopers are very annoying. The only way I can kill them is if I get lucky and find some sort of cover where I can easily take shots at them and hide behind it quickly before they start shooting back. Luckily, his bullets can't go through this metal grate, so I'm able to kill this trooper with no issues. Minus this one part where my controller disconnected and I had a mini heart attack. Found another oop I can get a power from, but again I chose not to do it so I can skip a fail. If you end up going through this optional room, it ends with Jessie getting the ability to create a shield in front of her from a magical safe. It's actually a pretty fun side mission, and low-key was bummed I couldn't do it for this playthrough. Got to the control panel, stuck my stick in the hole, and finally lifted the lockdown. After that, I headed back to the executive sector to meet with Pope.
What do you mean? Did you fuck my mom, Santa Claus? Did you fuck my mom?
Poop and Jessie sit down to an important talk where Jessie tells her the truth about why she's here. A long time ago, Jessie and her brother were playing with a magic slide projector in their hometown of Ordinary when some bad stuff went down. Dylan was taken by the FBC, but Jessie managed to escape. Pope tells her because everything's super confidential in this building that she doesn't really know anything. Jessie also explains to Pope the existence of Polaris, someone that I haven't mentioned yet. Polaris is an interdimensional being made of sound that lives in Jessie's head. Women do be schizophrenic, am I right, fellas? She became bonded to it after the events in Ordinary, and it's why Jessie is so special and why she can survive the hiss without wearing a protective HRA. Pope tells Jessie Marshall, the head of operations, might know more about the location of Dylan, but when the hiss first attacked, she took her team down to the research sector to protect the production of additional HRAs. So I head down to research and begun the search for Marshall. Haha, get it? Like, research, search is... It was funnier when I typed it out. I'm probably gonna cut this. Okay, note to self, cut this in the edit. Whatever you do not leave this in. Down in research, I found a Darling video. These are quick little videos made by Casper Darling. He's the currently missing lead researcher at the FBC. He made these videos to explain all the weird shit that happens inside the FBC to visitors, I guess. It's kind of like if a conspiracy theorist made a video in the style of Bill Nye. Oh my god. Oh my god. Bill Nye, I just realized his full name is William New Year's Eve. Had a big fight in the beginning of this level and I got introduced to his snipers. They're pretty easy to avoid and kill because the devs gave them these massive spotlights that reveal their positions anytime they aim down sights. The fight was easy overall, but I almost died at the end here when a hiss advanced on me while my gun was cooling down. Without my HUD, I couldn't see how much ammo I had, and I only found out it was empty when I tried shooting on an empty clip. Shit. Thankfully, there were a bunch of heals nearby I was able to pick up and kill a hiss. Explored for a while, even gone to Darlene's office.
What's the deal with the Hedron resonance anyway?
But on the bottom floor, another wave of enemies spawned, and with them, a new hiss form. This is the hiss cluster. After being removed from Clifford when he got neutered, one of his giant balls decided to join the forces of evil as a support unit. These will heal all enemies nearby, so it's best to take them out first. They can't attack, so it's pretty easy to fight, but they do move around a bit, which can be annoying. After killing it, I ran towards its body to pick up any dropped loot when I got spooked so hard I almost browned my pants.
Oh, fuck me.
Saw my meaningless life flash before my eyes as the trooper spawned in front of me. Didn't see much, it's mainly been playing video games and jerking off. I ran like a coward and accidentally got myself trapped in this hallway. I fought for a bit, but I was killed the second when the stronger hiss types advanced on me. Yeah, that was a weird noise, but I'm about to make another one. See, when I respawned at the start of the sector, the elevator. It's because the last 20 minutes I've been exploring, I haven't found a control point to set a respawn point in the sector. But that weird noise was because I thought I would have to redo all the exploring I just did. It's not a normal spawn point, so I didn't understand what was going on. Thankfully, I didn't have to redo everything. I quickly checked my collectibles and I still had the new pieces of intel I got, meaning I didn't lose all that progress. Back on the bottom floor, I went through one more room looking for loot. In it, I found a lab station where they're doing some test with a song. So I naturally assumed that maybe if I participate in the test, I'll get some sort of reward. Probably just some loot, but you know, whatever, it's still loot. I pressed play and stood in that room and waited out the song. And nothing happened. I kept waiting and the song kept going, and it kept going, and then it kept going. Nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened. I spent 5 minutes standing idle like a dumbass. So if you're bored and you ever want to watch me stand still for 5 minutes, you can come watch me stream these challenges live on Twitch at twitch.tv/crispy645. I swear the streams are sometimes fun and not just whatever the hell this is.
We're fantasizing.
Finally done with all the exploring, I got back to the story missions and started the search for Marshall. Entered this one room and started fighting the hiss right as I accidentally unplugged the power from one of my monitors. Nice. It was the monitor I had my Streamlabs running on, so I couldn't even tell if the stream was still live at this point. Thankfully, it was all good and everything went back to normal when I plugged it back in, and I continued fighting the hiss in that room.
Oh shit!
Now, one hiss type I haven't mentioned yet is the demolition hiss. They're like normal hiss rangers, but they use rocket launch. Normally not the worst thing in the world, but in this challenge, they're a massive pain in my flat ass. The first reason they sucked balls was their ability to destroy cover, like in this clip. In Control, some pieces of cover won't break up and others will, so I just gotta hope I'm behind an indestructible piece of cover when I fight these guys. The second reason they suck big blue balls is their rockets. They're heat-seeking, or Jesse-seeking, I guess. Regardless, the rocket's ability to follow you quickly really sucked because these things were good at tracking my path. Normally, I would quickly just press O and dodge out of the way far enough that the rocket wouldn't be able to catch up to me. But without dodge, all I could do was run. I barely escaped it in this fight, but during the challenge, I got hit by these a lot. And you're gonna see a bit in a second how annoying they actually are. The next area was another puzzle room. It's a lab where they're doing testing on an astral spike. There's one running around the open room, and the exit won't open until it's trapped up in the back of the lab. To do that, I have to plug in 2 different cubes so the back door can be lowered, trapping the spike. This was more annoying than hard. It's really just me running away from the spike, getting shots into my shatter when I can. Other than this one point when I got greedy and let the spike get too close, it was no problem. Got both cubes in, ran to the back, lowered the doors on the spike, and that opened up the exit. Started another fighting section in the next room, and got killed right away by 2 rocket shots. The first one hit me directly and put me in a very low health state, and even though I moved far enough away from the second one's impact, it still killed me because the impact of the rocket ended up exploding a fire extinguisher I was right next to, and I died from that blast. If you listen, you can hear both explosions in succession. In my next life, I stayed up on the stairs again because I realized the hiss wouldn't come up this way, so I could just pick them off from here. And hey, if another demolition hiss sent a rocket to me, I could just run down the stairs and they won't be able to hit me, right?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I hate these guys. So here's what happened. I started to move downstairs as the rocket got closer, and the rocket's tracking started following my movement. It slightly changed the rocket's angle downwards, and by chance, that was the right angle so it could fit in between the railing and the concrete. The rocket is literally like the size of that space, and it just happened to fit through it. The only reason I didn't die here is because I got lucky and the rocket hit the steps instead of getting a direct hit on me, but if it did, I would have died. Without dodge, it's almost impossible to escape these. A similar thing happens like 3 minutes later too. After this fight, because I got so pissed off at what just happened, I decided I'm going to focus on killing any demolition hiss first when I'm fighting a mix of them. At the next control point, I unlocked a Pierce. It's the sniper variant of the service weapon. It's very useful for high HP targets, but it takes a second to charge up each shot, and you can only shoot twice before it overheats. I also got the Spin, the submachine gun variant of the service weapon. I got it a while ago actually and didn't mention it. It's because it sucks and in my opinion is the worst gun on the whole game. Met Marshall. Her and her rangers are pinned down by some hiss and need help clearing them out, so she can access the HRH production. Occasionally in the game you'll fight hiss with some NPC allies. They They don't really do much, but they do make it easier for me to run around and get kills while the hiss are distracted by them. Before I can cleanse the control point, another new hiss spawns. This thing-looking thing is a hiss warped. They'll move around with an impenetrable field of debris, only dropping it when they take aim, so I just gotta shoot them when they're about to fire and quickly get back into cover before they hit me. Pretty easy to deal with if they're by themselves, but they do have a good amount of health, so sometimes it takes a while to put them down. Found the HRA lab and had to do this puzzle thing to turn it on. I tried doing it right and figuring out the pattern through the context clues, but I forgot how stupid I am. So after that, I just solved it through brute force and repetition. May not be efficient, but hey, it still works. You know what? That's the same thing the doctor told me after he butchered my circumcision. The HRA lab did turn on, but it's out of material, so Marshall gives me a clearance card, giving me access to Black Rock processing, a section down in maintenance that was closed off to me before and contains the special mineral I need. Before leaving research, I did finish upgrading my health skill branch. Even though there's nothing else really useful for me on the skill tree, I'm still spending my points on some other stuff, because after spending X amount of points, I'll unlock more personal mod slots. Personal mods are great because with them I can increase my overall health as well.
I'm the best around. Nothing but a hammer.
Down in maintenance, I get to the Black Rock processing entrance, but when I go to cross the fire break, I notice the floor is kind of missing. So I head to the turbine room next to the fire break entrance to turn the power back on and extend the rest of the bridge. But once I get there, I realize it's another cube puzzle room. Oh fuck. So to get through this section, I need to start shooting some boxes, like an incel aiming at the waist during his killing spree. The first thing I noticed was the two sockets directly in front of me. One with the cube already plugged in and lit green, and the other one with no cube. I'm assuming I have to remove the green cube and plug it into the other socket. I tried shooting the plugged cube, but it didn't budge, so it's not possible to remove these cubes from their sockets by shooting them. I gave up on that and started shooting some of the spare cubes across the gap to get it in the other socket. After a few tries, I got one close and switched to my sniper to see if that can help push it with a lot of force, but it didn't move. So I tried my sniper on one of the cubes on the ground next to me, and it went clean through it without moving the cube. So I guess the sniper's bullets are coded to act more like a laser than a projectile with collision. I won't be able to use them to help me move things. I switched to the spin and tried to use that. It's actually pretty good at moving cubes, so finally the spin has a use. On my next try, I was able to get the first cube across by shooting it once with my shotgun, then switched to the spin and shooting it again while it was in the air. Got that cube in the socket, but nothing really changed. I went down to the bottom floor and looked up, and that's when I saw two more empty sockets on the floor up top. So I gotta get up there and make the same shot I did, but twice in a row, and if I miss, the cube will probably drop all the way down to the bottom floor, which means just to get it back up to the second floor, I'll have to shoot it across the first gap, which is already a really tough shot. So this is a lot of work just to get the cubes up there. I went to the fire break to go double check that putting that first cube didn't change anything. It didn't, but while there, I looked up and saw the platform outside the top floor of the turbine room. I'm assuming I get there after opening some door that opens up after getting powered by two cubes. Back inside, I went in to quickly test what happens if I remove the green cube on the first floor. I couldn't shoot it out, but I can use my telekinesis to remove it. When I did, the turbines in front of me stopped spinning and created platforms. I can jump on them to get across the first gap. Put the cube back after seeing this and the turbines turned back on. I'm not going to count this as a fail because it's just me testing out the level design super quick, and I reset the room back to the same parameters it was before I used my telekinesis. Literally the only thing that changed is that I now know what happens when you remove that specific cube. Tried shooting it again, but that still doesn't work. So I decided to let the 4% Neanderthal DNA I have take over and brute force my way through these spinning blades. And it worked. I think it was only possible because Jesse kind of glitches out there for a bit and mantles onto nothing for a second, give me the distance I need to make that jump. It did take a bunch of damage while doing this though, which is super important to remember because I can't fully heal up unless I find some more guys to kill. Ran to the top floor to check it out, and it's about the same as the bottom, except the fall's further. I need to shoot two cubes across, and when I tried to brute force my way across, I didn't make it. I also almost died, and I'm now at a very, very low health state. Even though I don't have any HUD, I can tell this from the sound cues. Primarily, Jesse screaming like someone just went in dry. Now, I know what I need to do at least. I need to get as many cubes as I can across the first gap so I can get them up to the top and attempt shooting them across the second gap. I realized doing this all was going to take a lot of time and a lot of attempts, so I decided to go up top and do more testing to make sure I knew what had to happen. I want to see what would happen if I removed the plugged in socket on the top floor. When I did, the turbine stopped spinning and it created platforms I could jump across, just like the floor below. The difference here though is that I can't make this jump unless I do this. I tried a few times and was never really able to make it across with the turbines on. So unlike the floor below, I might have to take another fail here just to make it across the second gap. Now, while the cube was unplugged, I thought, fuck it, I'll try to plug it into one of the sockets near the door with my telekinesis before I put it back on the wall, just to see what would happen. I could always just take it out right away and reset the room so I don't have to count this as a fail, right? Yeah, so this is where I learned that some cubes can't be unplugged. See, if the light turns blue when the cube is plugged in, then unlike the green sockets, the cube is stuck there. I'm pretty sure the devs did this so you can't sock off yourself in certain puzzle areas accidentally. Like, if I got this door open, went to the other side, and unplugged the cube shutting the door, I would now be stuck on the other side with no way to open it. The design choice makes sense, I have no problem with it, I'm just pissed off because I didn't know this is going to happen here. So by testing this out, I fucked myself. I have no choice but to count this as another fail because I can't reset the room to what it was before I use my power. Even though I used my power twice here, I'm only going to count this as one fail. Because if I did use my power with the intention of failing, I would have just originally plugged it from the green socket and plugged it straight into the blue socket with one use of my power. Instead of what I did here, which was use my telekinesis to unplug it, put it down, test out some other stuff for a bit, then use my power again to pick it up and plug it into the blue socket. Okay, all that sucks, I gotta fail, and I don't even know if I actually need to do that, but I can't undo it, so I gotta keep moving forward. Headed back down to the bottom, started pushing cubes up the stairs, and then tried shooting them across the first gap. I did this for a bit, but one time while crossing the gap, I got stuck for a split second and died. Nothing changed though, I did have to clear one room before the turbine room again, but it only has 4 hiss, so it's super easy. Back in the room, I started shooting cubes again. I've been missing a few times. I wanted to see if I ran away from the turbine room, like pretty far away, and then come back. Would the cubes on the first floor respawn up there? If they would, it would save me all that time and pushing them up from the basement stairs. But when I got back to the room, all that respawned were the hiss. And because they caught me off guard, I ended up dying again. Next knife, I spent like 10 minutes trying to get a cube across when somehow the shut ended up getting one all the way up on the top floor. I have no idea how that happened. Tried getting it across the second gap and missed. Another 5 minutes later, I died again. Respawned, got to the room, and found this one cube bouncing around the turbines already. So the room's starting to get a little glitchy, I guess. 10 minutes went by, got a cube up top, tried getting it across, and failed again. At this point, I realized it's probably going to take me 10 to 15 minutes to get myself shut up for one shot at the second gap each time. Another 10 minutes later, I once again had a shot up top. This one was different. It ended up bouncing on the turbine and hit the socket that already had a cube plugged in. So if I had just plugged in the first socket at the other side of the door, I would have just finished this god-awful section right here, but I didn't do that. So I didn't finish it. The good thing, or unfortunate thing, depending on how you look at it, is I now have confirmation that it's possible to get the cubes across to the other side and close enough that it'll plug itself in. It's just gonna take me forever to do, and I'm not happy about that. Died a few more times while trying, and eventually I had to call it for the day because I was just fucking K'd. A few days later, I started recording again, booted up the game, loaded in, tried to get upstairs to check stuff out, but died, respawned, got through it on my second life, went up top, and... Why? Yeah, I don't know, man. The game auto-completed this section, I guess, or maybe it glitched out. I'm not even sure what happened here. All I know is that I rebooted the application a few days later, and now the objective was done. Even though I didn't use my powers here, I'm giving myself another fail. I don't know what happened. I can't explain it, but I also don't want it to seem like I used my powers offline and I'm just acting like this happened magically. I can't explain what went down, but I do know it's possible to get the cubes across and into sockets by shooting them, and I didn't do that. So I feel like it's unfair not to give myself a second fail here. Unfortunately, this isn't a game where I can go reload a save from before this happened to try again. The only way I could retry this section was to start a new game and get back to this area. And even though I said I would, I'm back after I finish the game and try to retry it. I can't reload. I'm a lazy fuck and a liar. I never ended up going back and retrying, so my fail total is now up to 5. On the platform, I just do another Ocean View Motel puzzle to extend the bridge, and I finally make it back into Black Rock processing. Fought another wave of the hiss, and then I met up with Arish and his men. Don't ask me how they got here before me when the bridge was missing. He tells me what I need is up ahead, but there's some sort of unknown hiss monster blocking the path, so I gotta fight whatever that is. And it has just been shredding through the Bureau Rangers. Look at this guy. He's obviously forced on his knees where some sort of extra large cylindrical object of some sort ripped his jaw off its hinges as it was forced down his throat. But in all seriousness, this is my favorite enemy type of the whole game. It's a unique unit that can disrupt the flow of combat in a challenging way and also scare you shitless at the same time.
What the fuck?
The hiss distorted. It will go invisible and wait till it's close to you before coming out hiding to hit you with a very strong close range attack. The only way to defeat it is to either constantly move so it can't catch up to you, or be hyper vigilant and get shots in while it's invisible by shooting the blurred atmosphere surrounding it. That's what I did, and it looks easy here, but when you're fighting 5 other guys at the same time with bullets and debris flying everywhere, it's almost impossible not to get through a fight with one of these assholes without almost dying, especially without the dodge skill. If I get caught off guard in a normal run and the sword gets close enough, I could try to quickly dodge its attack, but here, if it gets close enough to the attack, I'm guaranteed to take damage, and a lot of it. Found a video where Bill Nye explains thresholds and black rocks to me. Thresholds are basically areas inside the oldest house where another dimension is leaking in, and black rock is a mineral found in the quarry threshold. The quarry is a dimension that's just like a mine in space, and black rock is a basically near indestructible black colored rock. Yeah, it's basically just obsidian. Fought some more hiss snipers and almost got killed because I took cover behind an explosive canister. Find out the quarry, and it's another goddamn power cube section. I have to get 3 cubes and sockets to prime the charges for a detonation so I can blast mine a black rock prism. First thing I did was clear the area. I was already up high and just stayed up here and picked off the hiss. Got the highest socket completed by lining up the cube directly above it and rolling it gently off the edge. God, I love edging. Did a few more ways of dickheads, and I finished plugging in the last 2 cubes. With the prism in hand, I could finally get back to Marshall.
I'm Ashley with Watch Mojo, and these are the top 10 most insane anime cliffhangers.
After giving Marshall what she wants, she gives Jesse the information on her brother. Dylan, like Jesse, is special and has powers. Because of this, when the FPC captured him as a young boy, they put him in the Prime Candidate program. It's a program meant to nurture the development of new potential directors of the FPC for when the old one steps down, or shoots himself in the head like Trench did. Unfortunately, Dylan kinda went crazy in here, and he killed some of the people studying him. Since then, he's been locked up in the containment sector and kinda just left there. So, that's where Jesse's headed to now. The fights are getting a little bit tougher. Almost every enemy has a shield now, and it takes a while to break through. So what I've been doing is modding my pistol to do increased damage to shields, and my shatter to do very high standard damage. The game plan being that I could break enemy shields with the pistol and move in close to finish them off with the shatter. Honestly though, I mainly ended up using the pistol because most enemies are usually too far away for my shatter to be effective. The personal mods in game are almost all useless to me, with the exception of 2 types. One that increases my total health by a flat percentage, and another that increases the amount of health each source gives me by a flat percentage. While making my way through containment, I stumbled upon Howard's, an injured ranger. I talked to him for a bit and then started a side mission. I thought this would be a quick 10 minutes and I'd get some good loot, but you know. I mean, if I'm mentioning it in the video, it's probably because it wasn't just another easy 10 minutes. He asked Jesse to go find his missing partner Wells and escort him out of the clock's threshold. I said clocks, not the other word you thought I said, pervert. The clock's threshold is basically a dimension full of infinite cocks. Of infinite clocks slowly sleeping their way through this one section of the building. It's a pretty interesting area to explore, and escorting Wells through it is a fun side mission. That's the easy part. The hard part is the boss fight at the end. When Wells and I get back to Howard's, it's too late. Turns out his HRA was damaged and he's now become a hiss. Right when the boss fight starts, you can see his health bar appear. That's not supposed to happen. I have all my HUD off and I went to go double check in the menus if it was still off, and it is. You can see enemy health bars are off. But for whatever reason, I guess that excludes the health bar of enemy bosses, so if you see them during the gameplay footage, that's why. Howard's has a lot of health, but it's not like that much, and he kind of just acts like a normal hiss, so it's not really a hard fight. But because he's the only enemy in the area, I can't heal up at all during this fight. Well, without going close to him and picking up the source he dropped. So once I lose any health, it's gone. Obviously, this means my best plan of attack is to play it reserved and only attack him when I'm sure I won't get damaged, but because of the way shield mechanics work in this game, I can't do that. His shield, indicated by the white bar above the orange, will start to regenerate, and at a pretty fast rate if he goes more than 5 seconds without taking damage. So the only way for me to get him to a state where I can damage him in the first place requires me to be uber aggressive. I have to constantly be on his ass and follow him wherever he goes. I can't let him go hide in a room for a few seconds because that's all it takes for me to lose all the progress I just made. And I gotta be careful and hit my shots because I can't damage him while the gun is cooling down. I got really close to killing him here, but didn't, and had a bit of gamer rage. Had to step from the stream for a moment so I can blow off some steam by punching holes in my drywall.
Fucking ammo, fucking A, dude, fucking A. Fucking A, man, I need to break something.
That's a joke. I'm a fat fuck and went upstairs to get a chocolate bar. Unfortunately for my fat ass, the gods were smiling down on me, and during my next life, he glitched out. He went in this room and stayed idle for some reason, and it was long enough for me to deplete all of his shield and almost get the full kill on him. He did start moving at the end, but with all the health he dropped while standing in that room, I was able to fully heal and kill him without dying. So in the end, this quick 10-minute side mission turned into a full hour of gameplay. I did get some decent loot out of it, so not a total loss. Further down, I fight my first set of mold creatures. Yeah, they're basically just clickers. They're slow-moving enemies and pretty easy to kill. They come from the mold threshold, and you don't fight too many of them in the main questline, but there is a pretty cool side mission questline where you end up fighting all of them, and then a giant mold hentai tentacle monster, but I didn't end up doing that here, so this is probably the last time you'll see them in the video.
Oh, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck, what the fuck?
Oh. Yeah, I forgot I got jump scared by that one. That's the last time you'll see them in the video. One of my favorite things about Control are all the little hidden details and rooms you can find by exploring the map. Occasionally, you'll come across this weird photo of just a collapsed wall, and it's actually a marker for hidden loot. Shoot down this wall holding up the frame photo, and you'll find some high-tier loot behind the false wall. The game doesn't hold your hand and hint anywhere that this is even possible. The only way you can find this out is by paying attention to your environment and noticing the weird out-of-place photo. And once you find your first one, you know if you see it again in the building that there's hidden loot behind that wall. It's awesome. I love love secret stuff like that in games. I love world building like that in games. You can really tell the developers poured their hearts into creating this incredible labyrinth of a building, and the building feels alive because of it. Pull the light switch to get into the Ocean View Motel again, and I'm met up with this close-up of Dylan's face. I don't know why, it just really reminded me of the Better Call Saul meme. At the entrance of the Panopticon, I meet Langston, the guy in charge of it, where he explains to me what the Panopticon is. It's basically a giant prison the Bureau uses to hold all the unstable altered items, and oops. He tells me I can go see my brother's containment cell on the top floor, but first I have to help him contain a very powerful rogue oop. Before starting that fight, I did hit up the nearest control point to unlock a new gun form, Charge. Charge is basically a rocket launcher in gun form. It does high amount of splash damage and also has a very generous clip size. With it, you can charge up to 3 shots before needing to cool down, allowing me to take out groups of hiss with just 1 clip, instead of what I'm doing now, which is basically taking out 1 or maybe 2 enemies with 1 clip from my pistol. The only drawback is using it in close quarters. If I'm too close to the blast, I might end up killing myself, or maybe I'll kill myself by accidentally jumping off the bridge like I did in this clip. Who knows? As for right now though, because I don't have it upgraded or any good mods for it, I'm gonna stick with my grip and shatter combo. Went to go cleanse the TV, but of course it can't just be that easy. Followed down the twisted passage to find another boss waiting for me. I tried to kill it before I entered the room, but it won't drop and I can't do any damage to it. This time the boss isn't a normal hiss, it's a hiss warped. So that, plus the extra enemies in this tight space, make this boss fight a bit harder than the last one. I died my first few tries, but after getting fed up with it, I just rushed the boss, and I killed it before most of the other hiss could even spawn. Dealt with the hiss, and then went to go cleanse the TV. I wish I didn't have to, but I do. I know doing this is gonna open up the door for many fails. See, the TV gives you the power to levitate, and unlike some of the other powers in this game like dodge, it can't be skipped. It is required that you get this, just like telekinesis. The game needs you to have these abilities so you can complete the game, because these powers are used as tools to overcome obstacles in the main missions. Telekinesis with the cube puzzles, and levitation with traversal. There are whole areas of the map that are off limits to Jessie until she gets this power. And now that she does have it, I'm going to have to use levitate to get into these new areas, or I'm going to have to use levitate to pass obstacles that can only be passed by using it, like giant gaps or ledges that are too high up for me to jump to. Like in the footage you're watching, I already failed twice. There's no way for Jessie to get up there without failing. So from this point on, although I'll try my best to minimize the total amount, I will be getting a lot more fails just from traversing the map. I'm never going to use levitate while fighting, I never need to, but I'll have to use it to get into new areas of the game. Even with a bunch of testing to find what the most optimized route was, just in the tutorial alone, I must levitate 6 separate times, which is more than my current total. I went from 5 fails to 11 in just this one section. Now you're supposed to use levitate another 2 times to get out of the twisted passage and into the Panopticon again. But if I die here, and remember I can now kill myself at any time with a charge, I'll respawn at the nearest control point, which is outside the twisted passage. So doing that saved me from adding an additional 2 fails to my total, which is great. Did have to get another fail right away though to get to Dylan's cell. I have to use levitate to get to this platform. Follow the trail of bodies to my brother's cell just to find out he's already escaped. I mean, duh, that's why there was all those bodies outside. Pope contacts me on the intercom. Dylan went to executive and turned himself in. He's been affected by the hiss, but in a different way than the others, and put into isolation. On my way out, I was fighting some random enemies when they just despawned mid-fight. I don't know why they did this, but my best guess is because these enemies are a random encounter group of hiss, and not a staged group of hiss. So the second I got past the bunker door and technically entered a new area of the map, they despawned. It's good to know, but I think this only really happens with random hiss enemies. If the staged groups of hiss can't be forced despawn, then this is not useful to me, because the staged groups of hiss are the ones I have to fight during the missions. Before fast traveling back to executive, I spent some more ability points on upgrading my levitation, increasing its overall duration. The longer I can stay in the air, the less likely I'll have to use my levitation power more than once to clear big gaps. I mean, this did help a bit, but honestly, most places where I failed were in sections where regardless of this, I had to use my levitation multiple times, usually because I need levitation for elevation and not just distance.
Hello, young magicians. Are you ready to get mind freaked? Mind freaked!
Pope tells me they have Dylan secured upstairs, but to be careful. He's basically as powerful as Jessie, but infected with the hiss, so we don't know what he's capable of or what he wants. Pass by one of the rangers guarding him, and look at how disrespectful the devs made this man's hairline. He looks like he's struggling to stay alive. Look at his face! You know this man wakes up every day, looks in the mirror, sees the hairline, and then thinks about tying a noose. To make it worse, they also gave him like the gnarliest bald spot. He just needs to shave his head. He's fooling no one with that haircut, bro. Everybody can tell it's falling apart. Just shave it. Go bald, man. Pull a Johnny Sins. Just embrace it. I like how they partnered him with a guard that has some of the thickest, most luscious hair I've ever seen. He's got that Michael J. Fox and Teen Wolf flow, and I personally envy the shit out of it. Dylan is probably the most normal character in the game next to Ati.
Push the fingers through the surface into the wet.
Yeah, he's fucked up. Like, really fucked up.
Stop it!
I guess this is what happens when you have a psychopath get infected with the hiss. Somehow he's pitching down his voice as he talks like he's trying to prank call someone, and even though he's saying mainly nonsense, he does go on to explain what happened to him and Jesse when they were kids. They grew up in a town called Ordinary, and while playing in a dump one day, Jesse and Dylan found the slide projector, an object of power. When they turned it on, it would open portals to different dimensions. In one of these slides is where they found Polaris, and where Polaris bonded to Jesse, living in her consciousness since then. Eventually, some shit went down, and then every adult in Ordinary instantaneously disappeared. Some of the kids started to turn into monsters called dung monkeys because they drank the milk of the not mother. Yeah, I'm not making that up. You can go check the wiki. That's what happened. And shortly after that, the Bureau found out about what was going on. Jesse was able to stop the monsters from coming into our world by burning most of the slides and turning off the projector. But when the Bureau came for them, only Jesse was able to escape, and Dylan was captured along with the slide projector. Flash forward to the present, where the FBC has been using the slide projector in tests in some secret room of the Bureau, and it's where the hiss is coming in through. So just like she did when she's a kid, Jesse must find the slide projector and turn it off to stop the hiss from seeping into our world. Dylan gives us the keycard to get into the Prime Candidate Program section of the containment section. I don't know if that's where the slide projector is, but it is an area of the Bureau we haven't had access to yet, and Dylan wants us to go there to find the truth, so I might as well check it out. And the truth better be some new lore and not a link to some boomer's Facebook post claiming vaccines are made up of babies, pure blood virgins, and Satan's loads. I already know that. Before you go, you can continue talking to Dylan if you want. I highly recommend this if you haven't done it yet. You're either gonna get some crazy exposition about the game, or Dylan's gonna sing you a musical.
This is an ordinary song about an ordinary girl from an ordinary town. It's the ordinary story.
Fought my way to the Prime Candidate Program in containment. Most of these fights were easy at this point in the game. It sucks having to play super cautious, but without my abilities, it's play like this or get murked. The issues with the challenge at this point weren't related to my damage output because my guns have been upgraded extensively, so I could dispatch enemies with ease. I just have to make sure I'm always around cover because I have no way to avoid damage otherwise. While fighting a different section of Hiss, I learned something important. See, while starting this fight, some Hiss charge spawned. If you don't remember, these are the suicide bomber units. They constantly chase me down and explode when they get close enough. The second they're aware of your presence, they will start following you around relentlessly. Honestly, not that bad to deal with because they have low health and will explode on death, often killing other Hiss charge that are close to them. So I usually just deal with them first and then move on to the rest of the fight. But when I started this fight, I moved back into the hallway to give myself some space while attacking the oncoming Hiss, and they stopped following. The Hiss were still fighting me. All the Hiss that deal range damage didn't change their behavior, but the charged, a Hiss that can only damage me in close range, gave up. So what that means is that at least some scripted Hiss groups are bound to specific rooms or areas, which is very useful information. It let me clear this whole room like it was nothing. Now that I know all the Hiss can't advance past this wall, I can just take cover behind it and it ensures I never get flanked. Yeah, I know it's glass, but you know how video games are. Sometimes glass windows shatter instantly and other times they are stronger than concrete. Even the Hiss warp that spawned was easy to take down because he couldn't get an angle on me. I did have to leave cover to chase down another one of Clifford's balls because it started moving to angles I couldn't hit from where I was, and on my way back to cover, I accidentally levitated for a split second. The button to jump and the button to levitate are the same, and when I used it to clear the shelf on the ground, I accidentally held down X, making Jesse fly for a second. Now, I could have reset the room by dying, reloading the nearest checkpoint, and restarting this whole fight, but because I'm a lazy bastard, I didn't want to do that. So I decided to make this rule from this point on the challenge. If I levitate for a brief second during a fight, I'll take some heavy damage to make up for it instead of getting another fail or resetting, unless that levitation use drastically changed the fight. Like if I used it and I happened to float over an incoming attack that would have been a killing blow or something. In a case like that, I would reset. If I hadn't failed the challenge yet, I probably would have taken this more seriously and just reset, but because I already did, I didn't really care too much about keeping it as true to the challenge as possible. For the record, this also happened a few times while not in combat too. I would just be jumping over something and then accidentally float for a second. Unless that floating let me get somewhere I couldn't have without it, I would just move on and not count it as a fail. Further in the Prime Candidate room, I learned that Jessie is P7, another Prime Candidate for the Director, and her whole life she was being persuaded and surveilled by the FBC. If things didn't work out with Dylan, they could try to make it work with her. Plot some Hiss in a Lego silly, felt like Godzilla crushing all these buildings. The level design in this game is so great. You'll go from walking down narrow office hallways before finding a giant recreation of Jesse's hometown, or a room that spirals out of control the further you walk down it. You never know what the next area of the game is gonna look like, but you can trust that whatever it is, you're gonna be fascinated by it. Died a few times during the fight in the junkyard, including this time where I got jump scared by a Hiss distorted, and then another attempt where I got sniped by a warp. Brother turned Jesse's head concave real quick with that rock. After cleaning their room, I found a video of Dr. Darling to explain they have moved the slide projector to a secure location in the research sector called Dimensional Research. So now I have to find a way over there.
Okay, I'm bored in the house and I'm in the house bored.
Once I get past the fire break, I entered the ashtray maze. Probably my favorite section in the whole game. An infinite looping maze. In 1989, the Bureau found a very unique an ashtray with a single lit cigarette. The ashtray can create an endless ever-shifting maze which does not spatially affect its surroundings at whatever location the object is placed. Only periutilians who bound themselves to this object, and people said periutilians give access to, can successfully navigate through the maze, reaching the other side. It's the ultimate lock. No one can ever get through unless they're given direct permission to do so. Director Trench was bound to the object, and with Darling created Dimensional Research on the other side of the maze, giving access only to himself, Darling, and his team of dimensional researchers, making it physically impossible for anybody else, including Jesse, to reach Dimensional Research. Well, almost impossible. Turns out the magical janitor can get through the maze even though he's not supposed to be able to. I guess they needed someone to unclog the toilets there, especially if the thing clogging the toilets is this. Ati tells me to meet him in maintenance where he'll give me access through the maze. After interacting with the painting in his office, I learned that he has gone on holiday, so now I gotta follow his apparitions throughout the building to find out where he went. Fought another hiss trooper with a minigun, but again got lucky while doing it. This guy just doesn't move from this angle. I guess his AI thought he had a shot on me and didn't need to move because he just kept firing at the wall. Worked out great for me though because I was able to just get a constant stream of headshots on him. Some days I feel like God hates me. It's usually when I look down at my junk and remember he put the balls on top of my shaft, giving my undercarriage a permanent Squidward face. But other days, like today, I feel like he hates me because he's forcing me to cross another massive gap. Of course, I tried just jumping across, but like the child my wife just gave birth to, I did not make it. Looks like me and the most annoying guy on the internet, Sneeko, have some things in common. I tried a few more times to get as much distance as possible, but this is impossible without getting another fail. Went through the motel and saw the clip monster again. Kept following the old demented man's ramblings until I reach an elevator shaft you're supposed to drop down. Without levitating, you die, so that's another fail here. Big fight down in the basement while you wait for the elevator to reach you. Thought this was going to be hard, but like the fight before, I found a barrier the hiss wouldn't cross, so I was able to stay behind cover here and pick them off easily. This is the foundation, the base of the oldest house, the point from which the rest of the house grew, arguably the most sacred place and must be treated with such high respect. Oh, and also I guess Ati uses this to go on vacation sometimes. He comes back and gives me his cassette player. He tells Jesse it's a gift from his friends to her, to help her get through the maze and do her job. After that, he disappears back into an apparition. Although Ati is the janitor, he's clearly in more control of the FBC than any other person or director has ever been. With the tape player in hand, I start making my way through the maze. Jesse throws on her headphones, beginning the best sequence in the entire game. Now you're probably thinking that the crazy old Finnish janitor that is always listening to and humming Finnish tangos would probably give you some sort of tape like that, right? Well, turns out he's a big fan of metal too. The song is awesome, and listening to it as you fight through waves of enemies and navigate through the labyrinth makes it an unforgettable experience in the game. I mean, the lyrics are a bit on the nose, but still, it's so much fun. The song is actually by the Old Gods of Asgard, which is a band that exists in the Remedy Games universe. There are actually a lot of other references to other Remedy games, especially Alan Wake and Control. They're not just Easter eggs, they're parts of the plot. The game suggests that the events of Alan Wake are the results of another object of power, and one of Control's DLCs is dedicated to the events of Alan Wake, ending with you defeating a monstrous version of Dr. Hartman, a character from the Wake series. I really like this because in my opinion it's top tier storytelling to have all these games interconnected, but also be amazing standalone games. You can play all of Control without knowing it takes place in the same world as Alan Wake, and that wouldn't hurt it in the slightest. But if you do find out about it, it just fleshes out the world even more and makes you want to discover every secret you can about their connection. The fights in the maze are some of the hardest in the game, just because of the lack of cover. There's almost nowhere to hide, and the few places you can hide are going to be objects that can be destroyed, so they only act as cover for brief moments. The maze will also have a lot of trippy and weird platforming sections that end up requiring me to levitate again. So I end up getting a bunch of fails here. I'll count the total at the end of the maze. The hardest of the fighting sections here was this one. It had a trooper, a cluster, multiple high-level rangers, and a bunch of hiss demolition rangers that can make ludicrous shots like this one.
Fuck, man. That is so...
With the area here being very open format, it's basically impossible to avoid all the incoming explosives while also trying to get flanked by the others. And after a few tries, I decided to switch out my shadow for the charge. I might as well use the room's open layout to my advantage and get as much splash damage as possible. holy fuck do I feel dumb for not using this before. It absolutely shreds. I can kill multiple enemies with one hit, and it seems to be removing full health shields in one shot. It's not like I have this gun upgraded more than the others. At this point, my grip has the best mods and upgrades on it. But even without any mods, I have a feeling the charge would blow it out of the water, and you could see why right here. Did you catch it? Probably not. You're watching a Crispy 645 video, so we all know your IQ is on the lower side like mine. The charge removed the Ranger's shield instantly, something none of my other guns can do, and the reason why is based on how the projectiles function. When you shoot one of its rockets, it's not just a normal explosion. There's a slight delay upon impact where the rocket will absorb everything within its area of effect towards the point of impact before exploding outward, dealing high damage from the point of impact. It's during this sucking in period, giggity, that the charge can instantly remove shields. This is the best gun by far for me, just because of that. Remember, without launch, there is no way for me to quickly deal with shields, so this just saved me so much time, and with it, I'm able to get rid of shields and do high damage to multiple enemies in one shot. I can easily clear areas much faster. The only downsides are the gun's shit accuracy at range, so if I want to hit a specific object from far, I just switch back to my other form, which is the grip. And the other thing that sucks about the charge is that it can damage me if I'm within its area of effect, so as long as it's not too close quarters of a space, it will be fine. And if it is super close quarters, I can just switch back to my shatter for that fight. At this next platforming area, I was able to find a skip because I accidentally killed myself. I'm supposed to hop over to that platform, but I can't without using levitate. Fortunately for me, my oblivious ass didn't realize I walked off the ledge. When I respawned though, I was on the other platform, saving me a fail. So that's an awesome, happy little accident. You know what? My parents were actually gonna name me that. Happy accident. They ended up naming me Disappointing Accident instead. They wouldn't even let me change it back. I had to wait till I was 18 before I could get myself a real name. I was bullied a lot in school, yeah. Tried to get another skip but couldn't, and after failing there, I was done the maze.
That was awesome.
It was awesome, but I failed a lot there. A total of 7 more fails, all because of levitation, bringing my total up to 21.
Nighttime is the most serious time to fight crime.
Yeah, but I can't see anything either.
Dimensional research is where they use the slide projector. Red sand seeping through its corridors like the hiss into the oldest building. Walking into this section feels like the beginning of an end. Polaris is in here somewhere. Jesse can feel it. I just have to find out where. Another fail to get up into the labs, but the slide projector isn't here. It's supposed to be, but it's not. Still, Jesse can sense Polaris nearby and needs to find her. And then, like every video game, I come across a computer with the password just posted next to it. I mean, just don't have a password on your computer if this is what you're gonna do. Like, what the fuck's the point? During an expedition into the last remaining slide from the slide projector, the research team found a physical being made of resonance, Hedron. They contain it and brought it here to study. Hedron and Polaris are confusing to describe quickly, so just think of them as like mother and daughter with a sort of shared hive mind between the two. They are distinct, unique entities though. Darling became obsessed with Hedron while studying it and eventually fully exposed himself to it, learning that Hedron is the opposing force to the Hiss and has stopped the spread of it before. He learned about the oncoming Hiss invasion, so he preemptively made the HRAs for protection, including a giant one protecting Hedron's chamber from the Hiss. With these HRAs, Darling can amplify Hedron's protective resonance to shield wearers. He also learned that the Hiss had taken control of Trench, and that there was nothing he could do to stop him from opening the door for the Hiss. Unfortunately, Darling has died as a consequence of fully exposing himself to Hedron. Well, he kinda died. It's more implied that he's sent to a different plane of existence, and you do kinda see him a few more times later, but one of them is so weird, you'll know when it happens, it's crazy. Polaris wants Jesse to break off the giant HRA and contact Hedron, so that's what she does. Maybe Jesse was so infatuated with meeting Hedron that she didn't realize what she was doing, but releasing the HRA from Hedron's container not only unlocks it to her, but also the Hiss. They immediately begin a full assault on Hedron, throwing everything they got at it. The first part of the fight is actually pretty easy. There are these 3 satellite dishes shooting, I don't know, I guess concentrated like Code Red Mountain Dew at Hedron. I guess they're trying to turn it into a hideous monster. No, not a Hiss, a gamer. Unfortunately, after cleansing the 3 dishes, Hedron floats up into the sky, and now I have to do the same thing, but on a series of platforms all increasing in height, which means to get to the next platform, I'll have to use levitate. This feels like the end of the game. These are massive groups of very strong Hiss, but with my charge and my shatter, I'm able to clear them out pretty efficiently. Just getting to the next objective is the hard part. 1 fail to get to the first platform, 2 more to get to the second, died by falling off an edge accidentally again. I think that's like the 3rd time that's happened this run. After clearing that section without killing myself, it's another fail to get to that platform satellite, and then immediately another fail to get to the next platform, where shortly after I accidentally kamikazed myself while fighting some Hiss warp. After killing them on my next life, I was able to save a skip by using this weird elevator thingy. No idea why the devs put this in. It's the only time there's anything like that in this level, but I was able to use it to skip a fail, so I'm cool with it. Cleared the last satellite, and then I have to skill up these massive pillars, getting a fail at each one, adding 3 more, bringing my total fails for this section to 8 and my overall total to 30. But by the time I get to the last pillar, it's too late, and Hedron dies. Without Hedron, Polaris disappears from Jesse, and all the HRAs stop working. Jesse, with the Bureau, fall to the hiss as the game ends in a tragedy.
Finish the game. You lose.
Well, I guess that's it. My total fails, 30. Which isn't too bad, seeming I didn't use any powers during any fights, and I'm pretty confident all my fails, with the exception of the 2 in the turbine room, are unavoidable, so I'm happy with my performance. The game has a very dark, sad, and sudden ending, but it makes sense. With Hedron and Polaris gone, there's nothing to protect Jesse from the hiss. So this is where her story ends. Wait, what's going on with the credits? What the fuck is happening? Why did the credits look like the Joy Division album cover? I didn't have shrooms again, did I? What the hell? Okay, I guess it's not over. Jesse wakes up in a nightmare. She's working the offices of the Bureau, repeating the same meaningless tasks. You can explore the area, but nothing happens until you make your way to the director's office, where Ati, seemingly the only one of sound mind now, tells me I'll find myself in the director's office. Once I get in, I give Trench some mail before having a vision. A brief moment of clarity. Suddenly, the nightmare restarts, but the veil is starting to come off. There are now apparitions of the hiss within the office. Ati tells me I'm on the right path and to keep trying. Once in the director's room again, Trench tells us what happened. He was tricked by the hiss into thinking that Hedron was the evil one, and the only way to stop it was to let the hiss in. So he took the slide projector without telling one into the nostalgia department and turned it on. Jesse has another vision and fully regains her consciousness. She's aware of what's going on, but without Polaris, she's trapped in the hiss nightmare. The illusion of the office is completely breaking apart. Nothing is as it should be anymore. I pass Ati one more time where he welcomes me back, stating he knew he picked a good assistant. I get the Trench once again, but this time the service weapon's on the desk. I pick it up and kill him. Suddenly, the hotline rings. Dr. Darling's on the other side. He tells me that Hedron is gone, but it wasn't the source of the protective resonance or Polaris, just the catalyst, and I must find his office to learn the truth. In there's another light cord, bringing me to the Ocean View Motel once again. I ring the bell to open the door to the room with the keys, but in it, there's also a video being played. And this is the part I meant earlier about seeing Darling again in an insane way. What the hell is this? I love it, but like, what? It's just a music video for some reason. It's great, but just like so weird. It's not like an Easter egg or anything. You have to walk into this room to continue the game. The video is playing on the massive projector in there, so you are meant to see this. I don't know, whatever. I love it. It's just so goofy. Within the next room, Jesse finds a copy of herself, floating and surrounded by Polaris. Jesse Polaris then speaks before we learn that Polaris never died with Hedron. She kinda just went dormant for a second. Now reunited with Polaris, Jesse purges herself of the hiss. And you don't see this, but at the same time, the HRAs begin working again, freeing all the other people in the Bureau wearing HRAs of the hiss. Jesse now knows where the slide projector is and begins fighting her way in. The board tells us to hurry up because the hiss have started attacking it directly, but I can't really hurry up because it's another goddamn platforming section. 6 more fails here. Once I reach the projector, I'm sent to the astral plane where I gotta make my way up to the board to purge them of the hiss. Being the astral plane, there are lots of large gaps I'll get fails on, like this first one. The fights are weird here because the hiss are very weak. I don't know why, but they're much easier to kill than the last fight I had with them, and I haven't upgraded my gun since, so I don't know how this happened. Maybe it's a glitch, or maybe they're supposed to be weaker because the hiss are weakened by being in the astral plane, or maybe Jessie is now much stronger because she reunited with Polaris. Whatever the reason, it makes the last fighting section a breeze. The hardest part is being able to see the enemies with everything shaded red. I do fail another 4 times, but I reach Dylan, purge him of the hiss, save the board, and shut off the slide projector, finishing the game. This is another fake out. The credits played normally this time, don't worry. This is actually the end of the game. With a total playtime of 24 hours, 39 minutes, and 42 seconds, I failed 40 times. So no, you cannot beat Control without using your powers. But you can beat all of Control without using your powers in combat, which I think is pretty good. Out of the 40 fails, 1 was a melee use, 4 were telekinesis, and 35 were levitation uses. I really enjoyed playing this game again and going through all the lore. I forgot how great it was, but this video was a bitch to write because a lot of what happened doesn't make any sense. In the aftermath of the game, the hiss invasion has been cut off by closing the slide projector, but the building's still on lockdown because the hiss within the building are still present. Basically, you can continue exploring the map and playing side missions after finishing the main quest line, and it will still make sense with all the hiss around. Dylan gets put in a coma, I'm assuming maybe because he comes back for the sequel, I don't know. Now I was gonna make another DLC challenge video, but this time for Control's DLC. I was gonna complete the 5 side bosses, all of which are very hard, cool, unique enemies, and then I was gonna go play both DLCs, which each added their own new sector for Jesse to explore. But my last DLC video tanked, like super hard. So I guess I'm not doing that, although I did already start recording some of it. So I'll just quickly talk about it here so it's not a waste. Out of the 5 bosses, I was able to fight and defeat 2 of them, the former and Mr. Tomasi. Tomasi is elevated hiss with lots of health and will spawn multiple waves of high level hiss to defend him. But after 3 hours of trying, I was able to kill him. Mainly thanks to a unique mod I got for my grip that gives me unlimited ammo as long as I hit my shot. The former is a giant, tapeworm god or something, I don't know. He's pretty easy to fight. You just gotta make sure you keep moving and don't fall into any of the holes he makes in the ground. 2 of the other 5 bosses I could not defeat. I tried fighting the anchor, but this requires you to move in between 4 separate platforms of levitation, and if you don't, you get shredded. So I decided to give up on that for now and come back to try it later, but I gave up on the DLC video, so I never did come back to it. Reverse Jesse was the other boss I couldn't defeat. It's a very hard fight. I probably would get it if I tried for another few hours, but I got bored and depressed from trying, so I stopped filming here. I didn't get a chance to fight the 5th boss, Mold 1. If I did, I probably would have failed as well because I'm pretty sure that fight requires me to move in between platforms similar to the anchor fight. And the DLCs, I never even got a chance to try. Hey, maybe this video does well, I'll come back to Control and try those out, but let's be honest, this video is probably not gonna do well. Thanks for sticking to the end, and as always, if you liked the video, please like, sub, and share. It helps me grow as a small YouTuber, and I appreciate it. But even if you don't, thanks for watching the whole video. If you want to come watch me stream my challenges live, you can always follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/crispy645. Time recording this script, I'm like 75% through my challenge run playthrough of Dead Space 1. The 2008 version, my PC cannot handle new gen games. Are you crazy? I'm gonna do all 3 Dead Space games with no guns, so if you're a fan of the series, come hang out with me and watch some very exciting gameplay. Like, look at this amazing clip. Yeah, the challenge is, yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.